If you're working on a train beat like Folsom Prison Blues or The Devil Went Down to Georgia, then we've got you covered today. But more specifically, if you're running into a fast and syncopated rock train beat like Ballroom Blitz by The Sweet, well, that's the challenge we're really digging into in this lesson. What usually happens with train beats is we get them going, but then we feel stuck and constrained to a very simple kick drum pattern. You feel like you're trapped in a box, unable to break out and deviate from what you're doing as you hold on for dear life as you're playing the train beat. You can probably guess I'm speaking from experience. So follow these 3 steps we're covering today to unlock your right foot and build the coordination you need for freely and smoothly nailing fast train beats with syncopated kick drum patterns, or whatever else you want to play for that matter, because this applies to a lot of other things too, which we're going to talk about. All right, let's dive in. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out with me today. I help beginner and intermediate drummers become the musicians that others actually want to listen to and play with and have in their band because they sound awesome. And we do this, we get you sounding awesome by teaching you the core, key, essential drumming skills that actually matter and that actually get you faster results in the practice room. That's the big icing on the cake with all of this. You grow faster when you learn the non-glamorous skills. Today's gonna be a lot of fun because we're talking about why Ballroom Blitz is such a unique, really great challenge compared to a lot of other train beats. And then we're diving into these 3 steps. Step 1 is the grip that makes your train beats more precise. Step 2, the secret to coordinating your foot with your hands. And step 3, the universal practice truth you must follow to assemble this groove. Here's a hint, that universal practice truth is not only playing slow, there's something else we gotta be thinking about too. It's not just the slow practice. So this is gonna be a lot of really good stuff. This is an action-packed, very meaty lesson with a lot of stuff for you to practice. So get ready, I've got a lot coming up for you. But first, I've got a free gift I want to share with you. You see, there's a big problem that halts so many drummers' progress, a big problem that causes you to get stuck and plateau and stagnate and not make progress. And that problem is not knowing what to practice next. You know, maybe you've got your thing you're practicing right now, and you practice it a bunch, but then how do you know when to move on? How do you know when it's time for something new? What's the next thing you should practice? What level are you at? What's the next level? Well, I've got an organized system for you called 6 Steps to Pro Level Drumming. This is your avoid getting stuck, avoid plateauing, know what to practice next, shortcut cheat sheet, because this literally maps out all the 6 stages that I believe every drummer goes through from total beginner to drumming mastery. And so these are all the things that you need to do and be practicing in order to get there. So what you got to do, download this guide, totally free. You'll be able to figure out and pinpoint which stage you're in. It's easy to find out. And then you will then know exactly what to practice now, and you'll know what to practice next in order to level up to the next stage. So you'll be able to find, okay, I'm a stage 2 grooving drummer. How do I move up to stage 3 jamming drummer? What have I got to do to level up to that? That way you're always moving forward. Because if you're not moving forward, you're stuck, and I don't want you stuck. I don't think you want that either. So without further ado, I'll quit talking about it. Go grab the guide, take action. You're gonna get some great results from this. All right, on with today's lesson. Before we actually get into these 3 steps, I've got to preface with why Ballroom Blitz is such a great challenge. Maybe you're familiar with this song, maybe you're not. If you're an older drummer, this song came out, I think, 1973. So if you're my age, it was before your time. But this song is interesting because it's basically a train beat, but this is a rock train beat, where this is a rock groove, and it goes into a more basic rock groove in other parts of the song. But the intro part is, and what makes it a challenge, what makes it unique, is that the kick is not always just on 1 and 3. If it were just 1 and 3, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, nice and simple. That's not really that difficult, but what's hard is if we move the kick to the and, so it gets syncopated. That's what makes this interesting, and so that's why we've got to really break this down and talk about how to strategically practice it so you can play it tightly, cleanly, musically, where it sounds awesome. And you're free to kind of improvise and create within that framework. You don't want to be constrained to one thing. You want to be able to step out and throw in a fill now and then, switch up the pattern a little bit if you want to. And so my goal for today is not to teach you Ballroom Blitz note for note. I'm sure there's another video out there on YouTube for that, and you can search the sheet music, the note for note transcription if you want that. My goal is to get you where, yes, you can play that. We're going to talk about how to play and be able to play that tightly. That's going to help you play Ballroom Blitz as well as any other train beat out there, as well as hi-hat 16th grooves, like alternating 16th grooves. It really ties a lot into that. So got to preface with that. If you haven't heard Ballroom Blitz, it's okay. You can go listen to it after this. I'll put it like a Spotify link or something in the description so you can go check out the song. There's a lot of other songs out there like it, by the way, so you may have heard something kind of like this. But let's dive into our breakdown here. 3 steps. Step 1, the grip that makes your train beats more precise. Fundamentally, all we're doing here on the snare is playing alternating singles, right? Fundamentally, that's all it is. And if we call these eighth notes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, because we're going to be going pretty fast, and we accent 2 and 4, that's it. But there's a big problem, and this is very apparent for most of us. The dynamics get sloppy here because we need to make our accents loud, because this is basically a rock train beat. It has a backbeat, and most train beats are going to have that, whether or not it's a rock song. There's going to be a backbeat. We don't want it to just be... gives me a headache because it just it just sounds like an endless fill. That's not what we want. So we want our bass level dynamic to be pretty soft, but that means we've got to really accent those backbeats 2 and 4 so that it feels the way it's supposed to. And this is where things get interesting, because we tend to get very sloppy with our dynamics, and it's not because we don't know that we need to have the dynamics. It's not that we don't know, okay, this needs to be loud, this needs to be soft. It's that we don't really know the right hand technique to pull it off. So that's what we want to break down right here. What we've got to actually do is grip more firmly to control the rebound. And we're really just talking about right hand, because left hand is staying pretty soft for the most part, although we might throw in an accent or two. So basically, for the most part, we're going to be talking about right hand, but we're going to apply some of this to the left hand too. What we want to do after we play an accent, rather than let the stick bounce up, we've got to choke it out so we can be soft again. Otherwise, your dynamics get all muddled and wishy-washy, and your softs get blended in with your louds, and it gets messy. We've got to stay very dynamically precise here. That's really a big thing that we're getting at today. Dynamic precision is really our technical theme for this lesson. And so you want to make sure all of your soft notes are soft, all of your loud notes are loud. So if we just isolate the right hand part, it needs to just sound like this. So you can see how when I play that loud note, I'm opening my hand up and I'm allowing the stick up. So that's kind of somewhat of a looser grip. But as soon as I play the loud note, I'm keeping my fingers here on the stick. I'm pressing down a little bit. You saw how the stick wanted to come up. It bounced up to probably about right here, and then I brought it back into place here, ready to play the next soft note. And by the way, once you play the soft note, you're having to create an artificial rebound. Bring the stick up. It's like touching a hot stove. Bring the stick up so you're ready to play the accent. That's something we've covered in recent lessons too. I'll put that in the description, more on the artificial rebound. So just practice doing that. Soft, bringing the stick up. That's part 1. And then part 2, hitting hard but choking it out. Remember to stay loose for this. This is very loose because we've got to toss the stick up. Of course, we have our fulcrum, our pivot point. We cover this in detail in other lessons. Pivot point, nice and loose, but when we come down, as soon as it hits, we're having to bring the fingers in, press down. We're not like going crazy with this, but we've got to exert some pressure here to choke out that rebound. Otherwise, it ends up sounding like this. And that's no good because it just sounds like a mess. Maybe some songs want or need that, but most of the time we want our default to be lots of dynamic contrast. Our softs are way down here, our louds are way up here. So practice doing that. Tap, artificial rebound, bam, choke. Just do that slowly over and over again. I know it seems backwards, and that's why it's challenging, because we're hitting softly, boom, big rebound, then hitting hard, no rebound. It's like this weird juxtaposition, very strange, and that's why it requires practice, so do that slowly. And remember, this is all a means to an end. That's the way technique is. The technique is a means to an end, and what this is going to give us the ability to do is add the left hand back in. And ultimately, this is going to give your train beat so much more groove and feel and musicality, because if you're sitting here playing, unless you're playing with brushes or hot rods, that's just way too much. But suddenly, when you've got these dynamics, it gets so interesting. And then you can switch up the dynamics. Totally different song, total tangent there. You can get into so many different things where if you're able to mix your accents here with what your kick note is playing, so kick can do things independent of your hand accents, that is some really cool freedom that gives you so much groove potential. where you're no longer tied down. Ultimately, that's what we're working towards. In this whole step one of grip, controlling that rebound, controlling your dynamics, that is so key. So focus on this for as long as you need to, just that right hand. You can also do this just left hand, doing that same thing. And then, with both hands, just practice playing that train beat. Just like that, and you could throw in a left hand accent if you wanted to also. Practice doing that very slowly. This is our key fundamental foundation here. Now, step two, this is where it starts getting a little more fun and also more challenging because we're going to add in the kick. But what I want you to go ahead and try, rather than just playing the kick on 1 and 3, because you could probably do this right here. You might be able to get that going. That might not be too hard. You can go and try that if you want to. But what I want you to immediately do, if you're sitting at your kit right now, which, by the way, this is one of those lessons where if you can follow along with me, play along with me, pause the video, rewatch a segment, okay, get going again. This is a great lesson for doing that. So if you're sitting at your kit, that's awesome, because I want you to go ahead and try this. Play kick just on the ands. So forget 1 and 3, forget the typical train beat. We're just gonna do a weird exercise here. I want you to see what happens and how this feels. Play the kick only on the ands. So that means this right here. Guys, weird. It's suddenly really syncopated. And it means that the kick is only lining up with the left hand. Just like that, which is really strange. One of two things is probably going to happen. The first might just be that it's just plain sloppy. And if so, that's okay. I'm not judging you for it because I've been there. That's why I'm teaching you this lesson, because I want you to avoid the sloppiness that I've dealt with. Or number two, maybe it's actually somewhat precise, like maybe left hand's somewhat locking in, but it's too loud and you're having a hard time getting the left hand soft enough while keeping the kick drum loud enough. And so that's kind of an interesting, unique challenge there. So either way, odds are it's not exactly perfect right off the bat. If it is, congratulations, that's awesome. If not, we're gonna work through this. The big hurdle that we've probably come up on here is that it's very difficult to lock the left hand in with the right foot. We're used to locking right hand with the right foot because we play timekeeping all the time, like. That feels so natural, just right foot following right hand. And a lot of us even struggle with right foot always wanting to follow the right hand and not wanting to deviate from that. A lot of beginners struggle with just separating the right foot from the right hand fundamentally. And by the way, a great way to practice doing that is just make yourself play the right hand and right foot offsetting like this. So like singles between right hand and right foot, that can be really helpful for helping just start breaking away your right foot. So anyways, a lot of times that's what's going on, where our right foot wants to lock with our right hand and not our left. So what we have to do is really focus in on, okay, how does that feel? Because a lot of times it feels weird. Also, we want to be able to play the kick loudly, because if we're playing rock, we need a loud kick, not a wimpy soft kick. But our left hand is not playing accents on the snare most of the time. We want to be able to play a soft left hand note along with a loud kick note, where they're both still locked together and there's no or flamming one way or the other. Essentially what we're practicing here is dynamic independence. It's one thing to just play both limbs at the same time. That might not be that hard if you've played some 4 on the floor grooves. There's a super common groove where left hand locks with right foot, but what feels kind of weird is playing a soft left hand with a loud right foot. So that's what I want you to specifically target. Just sit here and specifically practice that, targeting your dynamic independence. Can I be loud here while I'm soft here? And if you want to go the extra mile here, flip it around and also go loud here, soft down here, and then switch it back. So you can really test how well is my dynamic independence there. It's a challenging exercise, but this pays off. Why does it pay off? Because our ultimate goal here, the end to which this is the means, is being able to play independent kick patterns down here, regardless of when our hands are accenting. Because number one challenge is playing an independent kick pattern underneath just this. So that's like level 1 challenge, but level 2 challenge is doing like a like that, because now we're mixing soft with loud and the kick is all random there. That's the big level 2, and that's what we're pushing toward here. That's what we're pushing toward, and that plays into so much any kind of alternating 16th groove on the hats. Trying to not hit my GoPro right here since I left it here awkwardly close, about to smack it here when I'm playing on the hats. And so that's a really cool bonus, that when you practice everything that we're getting into today, this is going to help with rock groove, like slower backbeat rock grooves, like snare cadence grooves, where we're thinking 16ths, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4, versus 8ths, 1 2 3 4 1 with a train beat, which totally carries over to hi-hat 16th grooves. There's so many of those in rock songs. And so what we're really zeroing in on here is that relationship between left hand and right foot. And when you get that solidified, it opens up a huge world of possibilities in your grooves. So in review, step 1, dynamic control with your hands, especially that right hand, but also practice it left hand. You're doing the artificial rebound from the tap and then choking out the loud so that we can have a lot of dynamic contrast and precision there. Then level 2 is, well, we've got to start tying that in with the kick. So practice playing softly here with loud on the kick. Very fundamental, make sure that's happening. Once you've done those things, you're ready for step 3, the universal practice truth you must follow to assemble this groove. So really I'm going to tell you 2 things, and one of them you know this is coming. If you've watched any of my lessons, you know I'm going to tell you, universal practice truth, you've got to practice slowly. You've got to assemble this very slowly, otherwise it's going to be a mess. So yes, I'm telling you that for sure. But the big practice truth I'm actually getting at here is that not only do you need to practice this slowly, you need to make sure you're maintaining proper dynamics as you're practicing it, because the mistake that a lot of drummers will make here at this point is, yes, they'll practice it slowly. That's great. Yes, you've got to practice stuff slowly, but the dynamic precision is not actually there. And so we might get it going slowly, but it kind of sounds like this. Where it's just a little bit of that sloppiness where maybe it's in time, but what we really want, even when we're going slowly, is this right here. So it's super slow and the dynamics are almost exaggerated, where we're playing the ghost note super soft, the accent super loud. The big idea here is that this can get sloppy easily if we're not careful. So not only do I want you paying attention to your time, making sure it's precise time-wise, but make sure it's precise dynamic-wise. And so that's kind of the twofold universal practice truth. Whenever you're trying to master something fairly complex and you want it to sound totally pro, it will, as long as you go really slow, focus on getting it in time, and as long as you're also focusing on dynamics, because this is something else universal and fundamental. Time and dynamics. Those are the 2 components of groove, the 2 components of something feeling great on the drums. You've got to have good time, but you also have to have good dynamics. And we could add sound to that also, like the way the drums sound, the way they're tuned. When you've got a good drum sound that's appropriate for the song or for the music, and then you're playing in time and with good dynamics, you know, mixing yourself well, your ghost notes are soft, your accents, your backbeats are loud. Those are essentially the fundamental components to sounding like a professional and recording well and sounding great as a drummer playing a groove, playing a song. Without any one of those, things can get messy. You know, maybe you've got a drum set that's just tuned way too high for the song. Even if you've got good time and dynamics, it's not going to feel quite right. Or say the drums sound perfect and you've got good time, but the dynamics aren't there, it's going to be boring and robotic. Or let's say the dynamics are there, the drum sound is great, but it's all out of time. You can kind of get by with a little bit of sloppy time as long as the dynamics are good. But there needs to be some good time precision there too. So all that to say, those are the essentials. Those are the fundamental things. And that's what we get at here. And that's why this is such a great lesson. This is a very valuable thing to practice. These are very valuable skills to be focusing on. So use lots of slow repetition. Practice this pattern very slowly. So measure 1 is measure 1. Then measure 2 is boom, ga, boom, boom, ga. And sometimes you can throw in an and of 3 accent there, also with left hand. So that's why we want to practice loud and loud, but also soft and loud. Soft. soft, loud. And then from there, you can get creative with this and come up with different patterns to play just for the sake of practicing this. You can really challenge yourself once you get these fundamentals down, and you can start experimenting and figuring out, hey, can I start to improvise a little bit? The key to improvisation is pushing yourself to do it. Improvisation doesn't just happen. It's something you have to say, all right, I'm going to try to improvise. See what happens. If it falls apart, if it's a train wreck, okay, keep practicing the basics until they become second nature, until they become autopilot. And then again, try, okay, can I start to improvise? And just see what happens. And if it falls apart again, it's okay. Keep practicing this stuff really slow until you can really start to pull out the improvisation and the creativity. Speaking of practice truths and important things to have in your head, without precision, time, and dynamics at the slow tempos, this will never groove at fast tempos. That's what you have to know. That's always the sobering truth about learning anything on any instrument. If it doesn't sound good and feel good very slow, it's not necessarily going to very fast. You might be able to get it sounding okay very fast, but it's not going to sound as good as it could. Because if you can play it well slowly, that means you've really mastered it. You really know what you're doing, and it's going to scale in tempo really well. But if it's messy slow, it might kind of come together, and you might be able to fake your way through it going faster, but it's not going to be as professional sounding and as polished and precise as it really needs to be. So spend as much time at the slow tempos as you need to. I would recommend, let's figure out some tempos here. I would recommend for this song, because our goal tempo is 215 to 220. That's pretty quick. That's how fast Ballroom Blitz is. It's not recorded to a click. It ranges about 215 to 200. Let's start down at 150 or even slower, however slow you've got to go. Here's what 130 sounds like. So start as slow as you need to without the metronome, just piecing it together, making sure it's there, and then start your metronome at like 100, 110, 120, 130, which is very slow, but if you can get it going at 130, then 140, 150, that's awesome. That's a great foundation, because then at that point, you've got it and you can just start scaling your way up to 215, 220, and you will be there eventually. It might take a few days, a few weeks, a couple of months. You might have to really focus on these techniques we're talking about, the hand technique, the coordination stuff here. But know that if you keep working on those foundational techniques, you keep practicing this slowly with precise time, precise dynamics, the tempo will come, the speed will come, and you'll be able to have that freedom to play this kind of stuff in whatever fast rock train beat song you can think of, or whatever hi-hat 16th song you can think of, because it totally plays into that too. By the way, just something to mention, we haven't talked about this in depth today, but Ballroom Blitz has a slight swing to it, which really challenges things even more. It definitely adds some challenge, because this is not entirely straight. So what I mean by this, if we were to play this straight, very straight, but swung would be now when we're going really slow like that, there's a huge difference between straight and swung. But when we're going really fast, like we've got eighth notes at 220 beats a minute, the lines kind of get blurred, where swung doesn't really feel that swung because we're not playing. It's not that super tight kind of swung. It's almost like a looser straight feel. So I'll play this on the hi-hats just so you can kind of hear the difference. But if we're going pretty fast, there's straight. Here's what I would consider swung. Not much difference. I'm not trying to go. It's more just like, think straight, go, 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 with just a little bit of a lope to it. Just think kind of loose, kind of swampy, kind of swung, but it doesn't have to be crazy swung. That's the amount of swing that's happening in Ballroom Blitz. And so it's more of a mindset approach going into it. It's not a metronomic, mathematical, all right, I got to get the swing right. It's more just think of that feel, listen to it a bunch, okay, how can I achieve that feel? So at a slower tempo, it might kind of feel like that. Where it's not totally straight. There's straight, here's slightly swung. It's subtle, but practice just listening to the song and playing around with that. See if you can start getting a feel for that, because that's gonna be what really makes this groove. If you're getting it up to tempo and it doesn't feel quite right, it's probably because it doesn't quite have that subtle element of swing to it. And so that's the added bonus. And ultimately, that's a deeper topic we could dive into in a separate lesson. If you want to learn more about string versus swing, not string, swing versus straight, let me know in the comments. Maybe that's something we should cover soon, talking about how to play straight versus swung, or somewhere in between, because there's a lot of songs that aren't exactly explicitly swung. They're kind of like a loose sort of straight, or like a loose swing, where they're somewhere in the middle. So let me know what you're thinking. If that's something you think would be helpful, tell me in the comments. But now, as we wrap up, question for you. What is your favorite train beat song? I'm really interested to hear this because I really couldn't think of a whole bunch of them right off the bat. I mean, there were the immediate classics like Devil Went Down to Georgia, Folsom Prison Blues. So there are train beats out there that we've all heard and know. But what is your favorite train beat song? Do you have a favorite rock train beat song? Maybe it's like a newer rock song that I didn't think of that has that kind of pattern, where maybe the drummer's playing sticks, maybe the drummer's playing brushes, maybe this is a country sort of train beat, maybe this is a rock sort of train beat. Anyways, let me know. Tell me in the comments, what is your favorite train beat song? I'm definitely interested to know this. And hey, before you go, grab the Avoid Getting Stuck, Know What to Practice Next guide. It's gonna help you out a whole bunch so that no matter what your level is, you'll always know what to work on next. You'll have a path to success, a path to drumming success right in front of you. The guide is totally free. Grab it in the description below. All right, as always, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for hanging out today. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this kind of in-depth technical lesson. I hope this has been really valuable to you and really helps you with mastering train beats and hi-hat 16th grooves and really just building more freedom in your groove. That's what I want for you. Know that you can do this. If you take action and you work on this stuff and you're disciplined and you're dedicated, which I believe you are and I believe you're capable of, then you can do this. You can master the drums. Grab the e-guide, dig into the nitty-gritty stuff here and practice slowly, and you'll nail it. You can master this. I'll see you on the next lesson. Have a great week. Stay non-glamorous.